Hey everybody, welcome back. Apologize for the technology issues yesterday. I think it was a memory problem on my phone. I was trying a new way to record and upload these, so if it was a memory issue, it should be fixed. If it was something else, then it might happen again today. So hopefully not, but we'll pick up with 13, which is where I was at yesterday when the video cut off. The sluggard says we're talking about Proverbs 22. If you've got any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below. If you could share this out with your friends list and like it and subscribe over on YouTube, all of those things are appreciated. So anyway, we'll pick up with Proverbs 22 verse 13. The sluggard says, "There's a lion outside, and I shall be killed in the streets." And as I was starting to say yesterday, this one really kind of messed with me because I was trying to figure out what a lion had to do with being lazy and what. But what I come away with is basically that a lazy person will make up excuses as to why they can't go to work, why they can't do the things they need to, why they're procrastinating, etc. Even if it goes to the extreme of making up the fact that there's a lion outside and they can't get to wherever they need to go. Which comes back to lots of issues. I mean, there's the laziness issue, and then there's the honesty issue. And then there are other issues for sure. So I think the moral of the story is not to be lazy. But I mean, if you think about it, a lot of times our procrastination will come down to stupid things like this. You know, I've only got half an hour, I'm not going to get started on that. Well, you know, if you got started on it, you'd at least be half an hour from where you are. And you might even be able to knock it out in half an hour. But the truth is, you'd rather scroll Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and you'd rather do that for half an hour than get started with whatever actually needs to be done. So, you know, just watch those things. Verse 14, the mouth of a forbidden woman is a deep pit, and he with whom the Lord is angry will fall into it. We've talked about these forbidden and strange women. And I mean, every time we talk about them, the moral of the story is just to stay as far away as possible. I think it's interesting that it talks about the mouth of the woman being a deep pit. We've talked about the power of the tongue and the power of the mouth before, and so I think the word picture there is that, you know, she will con you with her words, and you know, it's not a small stumble; it's a deep pit to fall into. Verse 15, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. No, I do not think this is saying that we should beat our children with rods until they behave, but I do think it says that we should discipline our children early to drive some of that foolishness out so that they don't carry it with them. I think we all know people who needed more discipline when they were younger, and you know, maybe still need it today. Verse 16, whoever oppresses the poor to increase his own wealth or gives to the rich will only come to poverty. So by oppressing the poor to get rich yourself, or by giving to the rich, I take this as like, you know, giving gifts to the rich to try to get on their good side. Both of these will only lead to poverty and will not help your financial situation. So in verse 17, right in the middle of the chapter, the tone of Proverbs changes. So we went from these quick little, you know, 2-line, maybe 2-verse, do this and don't do that type situation. And then in verse 17, it's almost like Solomon stops, not necessarily mid-sentence, but stops in the middle here and turns to his son to have a conversation, to have a more consistent and, you know, conversation type thing. And so it's not just these little bits of wisdom, it's an actual conversation. So because of that, I'm going to read 17 through 21. That's a paragraph in this conversation letter thing. And so we'll do 17 through 21, and then I'll come back and talk about some different pieces. 17, incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, apply your heart to my knowledge, for it will be pleasant if you keep them within you, if all of them are ready on your lips, that you may trust, that your trust may be in the Lord. I have made them known to you today, even to you. Have I not written you for 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge, to make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you? Okay, so in verse 17 it says, incline your ear, pay attention to the words of the wise, and apply your heart to knowledge. So apply your heart, your dedication, your what you're going after and what you're going for to knowledge, to gaining wisdom. And then at 18 it tells us the reason for that, for it will be pleasant if you keep them with you, if all of them are ready on your lips. So having these bits of wisdom memorized and ready to share with others, have them ready on your lips so that you can benefit others, and so that it will benefit you, because we know, they talk about all the education, where they're teaching teachers to teach, that if you're able to teach something, that you are much more likely to know it yourself. So if you can get to the point on a subject matter to where you can teach someone else, then you have that. You definitely have that down. So if we can get to the point as we seek wisdom, to where we're giving wisdom to other people, that wisdom will be locked inside of us. Verse 19 says that you may trust in the Lord. I have made them known to you, even to you. So he's teaching this to his sons and vicariously to us, so that we can have a deeper trust in the Lord, and that we will know him better, and we know his personality better. It's for counsel and knowledge. Verse 21 says, to make you know what is right and true, that you may give a true answer to those who sent you. So to those we answer to, that we'll be able to give a right and true answer to those. And then in verse 22, it picks up, do not rob the poor because he is poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate, for the Lord will plead their cause and rob of them those who rob them. Make no friendship with a man who is given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways, and be entangled yourself in a snare. Be not one of those who give pledges, who put up security for debts. If you have nothing for which to pay, why should your bed be taken from you? Do not move the ancient landmark, for your fathers have set. Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. So there's a lot in this little chunk. And that was 22 through 29. Verse 22 and 23, talk about not robbing the poor because he's poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate, for the Lord will plead their cause and rob of life those who rob them. So I think he's pointing out to look out for and protect the poor. Obviously, don't take advantage of those, because that's who the Lord is looking out for and protecting. So it says that he will plead their cause, and he will rob those who rob them. And so we should look out for the poor, because God's looking out for the poor. We want to be on the right side of that equation. Verse 24, make no friendship with a man given to anger. Don't associate with people that are given to anger. And this isn't saying that we can't have friends that have anger issues. I think there's a difference between being given to anger, as it says here, and people that struggle with it. Because if you're struggling against it, you're trying to make yourself better. You're trying to get out of that. You're trying to break those habits. But if you're just angry and you're given to anger, you've given up on improving that. Then I think Solomon here is encouraging us to just stay away from him, because you could learn his ways. You could learn, you can become more angry yourself because you hang out with them. But you could also entangle yourself in a snare by being associated. You could get yourself into trouble. Verse 26 and 27, we're talking about debt again. It says, be not one of those who give pledges and put up security for debts. If you have nothing for which to pay, or with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from you? So be not one who gives pledges and puts up security with debts. Pay with money and not with promises. Because if you put up security, if you put up your house or your car in order to secure a debt, if you're not able to pay that debt, they're going to come take those things from you. So it's just another encouragement to not get into debt and to be intelligent about the debt that you do take on. And then in verse 28, do not move the ancient landmark that your fathers have set. This one's an interesting one to come across with the recent happenings with all of the Civil War statues and old Southern historical figure statues being taken down. And I don't think this is, well, obviously this is not written to speak to that. But in these days, if you remember the Israelites' story, they had a bunch of like landmarks where God would do something big for them, and they would put up a landmark when they crossed the river. They would put up a landmark, when they walked through on dry ground. They stopped and put up a landmark. And so I think this is pointing out, not to forget your history, not forget the things that God has done for you, because, we can always start there. If we don't have a history with God, if we don't have something to go back to and say, that's when something big happened, or that's when I made a decision to follow Christ, or that's when, I decided I wasn't going to be stuck in this habit anymore. I wasn't going to deal with anger anymore. I wasn't going to deal with whatever that vice was anymore. And I made a landmark, and that's there. Or even if you set up landmarks in your family's history, and when your dad gave up alcohol, and you decided that you're never going to struggle as a family, you're never going to struggle with that again, or whatever the case may be. Always remember those things to be able to go back to them, and don't erase them, don't remove them, because you always have that lamppost that you can go back to and move forward from, if worse comes to worse. Verse 29, do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. So by being skillful in our work and whatever we do, that will put us in the presence of those in power, and in presence of those who have the ability to make things happen. It will not put us in front of people that don't have that ability, that don't have that power. So that is it for Proverbs 22. We should pick up with Proverbs 23 on Monday, and it appears that the video decided to work all the way through. And so as long as I can get it uploaded in its respective places, you should see this and celebrate with me in that. But I look forward to seeing you next week. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for being here. Again, comments and questions, likes and shares, subscribing on YouTube, all of those things are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being here. Have a good one.